Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Students, today we are going to start our second unit, that is solving a biological problem. Biological method. It is a scientific method in the field of biology which is used to solve any biological problem which we are facing today. So, it is basically a problem solving technique. How we get across a problem and how we use different methods scientifically to recognize it, to observe it, to find a solution to it, and deduce a specific outcome for it. So, an act of solving a problem in a scientific way is known as a biological method. It has great contributions in the field of medicine, ecology, the study of environment and its aspects around us, and the study of ecosystems and technology. Now, there are certain steps involved in this process. First, we have to recognize the problem, then, we have to observe the problem, then, we have to formulate a hypothesis, deduce reasoning, conduct experimentation, and then summarize our results and report it to the higher authorities or with public. So, getting a detailed view of this topic, we will first move on to recognize a biological problem. So, first of all, we find out what is the problem. And any question that arises in our mind about the living organisms or the creature which is in our mind is we call recognizing a problem. Observation. We use our five senses to observe a problem. We can go through certain readings and studies which has happened earlier in the history about the same problem, and then we go for the qualitative and quantitative analysis of the problem during our observation process. So the qualitative observation use our senses, whereas the quantitative observations use particular instruments. So according to your notes, qualitative observations are less accurate, whereas quantitative are more authentic. Qualitative cannot be measured, whereas quantitative can be measured. Qualitative cannot be recorded in terms of numbers and figures, but quantitative can be recorded in terms of numbers. Qualitative may include beauty, intelligence, the quality of a substance, the freezing point or the boiling point of water is, we can discuss it that freezing point is colder whereas boiling point is hotter. The 1 liter of water is heavier than 1 liter of ethanol. These are the examples. But on the contrary, the quantity of a substance is known in quantitative analysis. We can find out the freezing point of water, that is 0 degrees Celsius, and we can find out the boiling point of water, that is 100 degrees Celsius. And we can find out that 1000 grams of water is equal to 1 liter, whereas 789 grams of ethanol is equal to 1 liter. That is why the ethanol is lighter than 1 liter of water. 1 liter ethanol is lighter. So now moving on to the hypothesis. Hypothesis is basically the tentative solution of a problem, what comes in our mind. For an example, there's a problem that I have seen a tap opened and broken down. So I can see that the water is getting wasted. How I'm going to solve a problem? The first solution that arises in my mind after hearing the facts and figures of the public around us, that it's broken, it's not working, the knob is jammed. So what will I do? I will turn off the water lever from the pipelines where water is coming. I will turn off the valve. That is the tentative solution which has come up to my mind, that this is the solution, and this is how I explain my observations, and this is the solution which has arisen in my mind. And I can give a statement like this. So the statement should be general. The statement which I give should be a good prompt idea, and people should also agree to the available observations. It should be simple, it should be possible, it should be tested, that if I conduct this kind of act, it will be accepted. And there might be a chance that if I turn off a valve and still the water does not stops. So this is how I just related an example to make it more clear to you. So when we formulate a hypothesis, then we are using very our creative technique of thinking, and we are very careful about it to give a reason to formulate a hypothesis. Deduction. So what is the logical conclusion I deduced from this test or the hypothesis? Whether the hypothesis I said is true, or whether the statement I gave, that turning off the valve of water will stop the water from getting wasted, is I can expect that it might be true. And if it might be true, then what would be the result? And it involves the use of logic. We can use if then logic behind it, that is from general to specific. For an example, I wanted to share an example. All men are mortal. Mortal means they have to die in the end. That is a general statement. Then Socrates is a man. Socrates is the name of a person. So I know that Socrates is a man. I'm moving from general to specific. Then Socrates is mortal. Because Socrates is a man, so Socrates is also mortal, because all men are mortal. Moving from general to specific. How I deduce results from general ideas to and move toward the specific idea and deduce the result out of it, that because all men are mortal, Socrates is also mortal. He also has to die in the end. Now experimentations. This is the basic method, this is the basic step in a biological method, in which we conduct experiment to see if the hypothesis I stated is true or not, and the deductions I figured out from that hypothesis, if I will test it according to my experiment, whether this hypothesis be accepted or rejected. So, for this, we conduct two experiments. One is the experimental group, and the other is the control group. Experimental group is the group of those who are affected by a problem. For example, malarial patients, they are affected with the outbreak of malaria. And a control group, which is the same experiment conducted with healthy persons which do not have malaria. So the control group runs with the experimental group, so that we can contrast our ideas, we can compare the results, and only one variable out of both is different, so that we can test that variable in both the experiments. Now the summarization of the results. How we summarize our data, the actual qualitative and quantitative data through which we have gathered through experiments. We have averaged the result and used statistical analysis to draw conclusions out of it. Now in the end, we report those results with in our scientific journals, in our books, which are, which this Act is also a part of a scientific method. We share this information with the rest of the public so they can be benefited from our research, from our study, and they can take it further and take research further in a helical structure, because research never stops. It is carried on. Knowledge never stops. So thank you, and we will continue our study in our next lesson, and you have to learn them, the multiple choice questions and the short question and answers and the text which we have studied today. Thank you, class.